Welcome to the Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship My Money Share as we get ready for a Saturday game where all teams are in action for the MLB. We've got it's not the Elite Eight. It's the winners of the Elite Eight. It's the Final Four. So we got a couple college games. You got some nice projections there over at Osmo. You also get free rankings from Alex Baker, Osmo himself. And then we've got two NBA games. We'll have projections for that. It's kind of a light slate. They're not doing much with it. I think it's a 5 o'clock and an 8 o'clock game. But of course, we will be in premium Slack talking about the NBA. And then we go with a monster Sunday slate. I think there are 12 games on Sunday, kind of split between starting at noon or 12:30, and then there's a healthy 5 or 6 games going off at 7 o'clock. And then again, Monday, very slight slate. I think that is the national championship day, Adam. And then we've got Tuesday and Wednesday, and we're almost done with the NBA. The 10th is the last day. How are you feeling about that? You ready to go back to just one sport?
Yeah, very, very ready.
I am as well. I am as well. But in the meantime, we do have some Major League Baseball here. So we're going to cover the early portion of the slate. We will have the DFS MLB strategy show. That will be Adam and myself. That will be at about 11:15 on Saturday morning. We will go through every single game on the slate. We will also have a live before lock for the 6-game main slate starting at 7 o'clock is the lock. We will go around 6 o'clock. That will be myself and Chris Baggs. And then you're going to get me and one Jake Hari reuniting because it feels so good on the Sunday slate. We are going to do that not quite up until lock. We had a couple scheduling things, so I think we're going to start that at 11 or 11:30. We should have the majority of the lineups out by then, but of course we will have premium content and all the good stuff behind the paywall, plus a plethora of people, very knowledgeable subscribers and contributors in the Slack chat. Adam, have you seen how many screenshots have been coming in from our viewers and listeners and subscribers, both in NBA and in baseball?
Yeah, Lofty and I were talking about it on the Deeper Dive show on Friday, and I was saying I was a little bit jealous of it on Thursday night because it was just one of those slates where a lot of stuff that I talked about was right, but my lineups just kind of didn't get made exactly the way I wanted them, and so I'm looking at my break-even night, and then I get in Slack, and everyone else is winning, so I was getting a little bit jealous.
Yeah, and by winning, we mean turning like a couple $100 into a couple $1,000. This is not tripling. I mean, I was doing cartwheels because oh, ha ha ha, I tripled up 2 days in a row, and I'm like, oh, but yeah, winning a couple $100 is not winning a few $1,000s. We had a couple people win 5 figures out of that. Is just nuts.
Yeah, $70,000 screenshot from the day slate on Thursday. $10,000 basketball screenshot from Wednesday or Thursday. It's been a good week.
Yeah, I saw that even Buddy Kawaisenberg, he kind of floats around the edges here. He turned a couple $100 into 11,000 in NBA. He was one of the guys. It's like, good God, people, outstanding work. Makes me a little jealous that I'm trying to do multiple sports because throw in MMA because we have those projections, NASCAR, which I do like to do, and we have excellent projections and ownership projections for that. So I've just been running around with my head cut off, but it's okay. The bankroll keeps going up, which isn't always the case, but it is nice to see. So it allows for, you hit a couple of these nice ones where you win, a couple $100 off a few dollars. It erases the other mistakes that you make,
Yeah.
which is very, very helpful. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm averaging about 450 lineups a day in the low dollar stuff, but I'm playing all the slates, all the formats, the tiers and classic on DraftKings. I've branched out to hand building a couple lineups here and there on FanDuel. And then I'm doing some Yahoo because we have a nice little partnership here with Yahoo. So we're going to start doing some exclusive feature content for them, particularly on Fridays. But I have a feeling that we'll be doing some articles and such each day with specific Yahoo content because they have a very unique pricing structure that if you're not used to, you can't just walk over there and pick the same player pool that you have before, which I like because it also provides you hedging kind of against yourself because the prices are so disparate. I mean, tonight, Justin Bour was $8 as compared to Mike Trout, who was 26. Mookie Betts was 26 or 25. JD Martinez was about the same. So you got to find a few of these nice guys, and they'll help you out. And it's definitely something to do. Plus, it's a 2-pitcher site, which is unique because their pitcher pricing is not what you're used to seeing on DraftKings and FanDuel, which adds another layer of a bit of a challenge, a bit of differentiation. And then they've changed their scoring this year to make it so it's less stacking friendly. So if we say FanDuel is almost, you must double stack because of how they've goosed runs and RBI as compared to DraftKings, over on Yahoo, they've actually suppressed the RBIs and runs when you use the singles. So this is what I did: is I went through all three sites and I used singles as the benchmark, and then said what percentage up or down of the multipliers is it. So Yahoo actually does a little more for home runs and a little more for any individual batter category, and a little less for anything that you'll be getting from synergy, which of course would be RBI. So it's a fun way to look at it. And if you set all three sites next to each other, Yahoo's kind of in between where DK is and where FanDuel is, which is really funny because you can actually play 6 players, including the pitcher, but you can play 6 batters from one team if you want on Yahoo. So that's the last site where you can go all in on a true full stack. So you can check that out. If you have not yet made a DFS deposit, those are the keywords, a DFS deposit. I mean, I've had my Yahoo account for like 20 years. I haven't had DFS for 20 years. So if you make your first DFS deposit, use the promo code AWESEMO, you will get $30 matched up to your first $30 in your deposit, and that will be in Yahoo player points. And those are available for immediate use. You can just click the little button when you're entering contests and use your player points first. So it's definitely a good way to go if you guys have not yet done that. All right, Adam, let's look here at our slate. We've got, looks like a 6-gamer here. So we will go game by game because this will be our main focus of content for those of you that are listening overnight or going to the gym early in the morning. And then, of course, you can catch Adam and I mid-morning where we will go through game by game again. But this is projected lineups, our first read. We'll see what we have. We have the Washington Nationals taking on the New York Mets. We have Patrick Corbin and Steven Matz, couple southpaws on the hill here. Very low total, Adam. 3.7 implied runs for the Nationals. 3.4 implied runs for the Mets. The Nationals, they've been scuffling, but ending up with some wins. They're without offensively, of course. Bryce Harper is not with them. He is in Philadelphia. We know that Daniel Murphy is injured, but he's in Chicago now. And Trey Turner, also injured, fractured fingers. So we have a somewhat watered down lineup, but it's still decent because they're going heavy on the platoon advantage. So talk to me a little bit about Matz, but I'm curious your thoughts. Brian Dozier, his first year with the Nationals, he has always been a lefty killer. Anthony Rendon, arguably the best all-around player on the Nationals now, could be a fringe MVP candidate in that he might get a couple votes. We'll have to see what happens. And then you have the incredibly talented Juan Soto, who hits lefties very well for being, 19 and a half, 20 years old. Pretty impressive. Talk to me a little bit about Matt's 7,800 on DK. That's one of the price points we do like from him. Slightly watered down Nationals lineup, but I don't think this is a slam dunk. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm actually more interested in the Nationals bats here. Steven Matz has kind of always been an enigma. He has dealt with some injuries in his career. He has some talent, but it comes and goes. When he's bad, he's really bad. And when he's good, he's good. But he was good in his strikeout stuff was good in his first start of the season against Miami. But Miami is obviously a really bad offensive team. Matz he only struck out 3, but he had a elevated swinging strike percentage, which at 12.2%. So it didn't translate into strikeouts, but the plate discipline numbers look good. The thing that stands out to me, though, and the reason that I'm actually really interested in the Nationals here is one thing that we've seen over the years from Matz is that he kind of goes as his slider goes. When he's not throwing his slider, he tends to not be very good. And when he is throwing it is when normally his stretches of being a really good pitcher coincide with increased slider usage. He only threw it 2.5% of the time against the Marlins. So that concerns me if I'm looking to roster Matz, but it makes me really interested in going to the Nationals, especially because, not having Harper, not having Murphy, it doesn't help them, but it does make them more right-handed. You get Brian Dozier, a right-handed bat with some speed. Matz is terrible at holding runners despite being left-handed. So you get some stolen base upside from Dozier. You get a ton of power from Rendon. Soto can hit anyone, like you said. You have right-handed power in Zimmerman. Gomes has enough power for a catcher to be appealing. And then at the bottom of the order, a guy who makes for a really contrarian option with a ton of upside is Victor Robles, one of the Nationals' top prospects. Really, really fast, huge stolen base threat. If he gets on against Mats, he'll be running, has some pop as well. I think Washington, with only a 3.7 implied run total right now, probably comes in pretty low owned, but I think that the upside is really high against Mats.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a couple other guys I want to point out. Ryan Zimmerman, he is healthy for the moment, but in his last 230 plate appearances against lefties, he has a 310 ISO and a 440 WOBA. Those are absolutely elite numbers. And then Anthony Rendon checking in with 308 WOBA and a 420. Pardon me, I've done my stuff backwards because I want to focus more on isolated power. He has a 308 isolated power and a 420 WOBA. So those are very nice. And both those guys are in the 165, 170 range for weighted runs created plus, which is an advanced metric that is used to neutralize ballpark factors and create a league-wide baseline of 100 for scoring efficiency. So that means when these guys are up to bat against lefties, they create 70 and 65% more runs than the average hitter. So that's something that's very important. And then in the event Yan Gomes is out, I believe the backup is, I think it's Kurt Suzuki still for the Nationals. I haven't watched many games, but I think it's Suzuki. But he's also very good against lefties. Sort of came on late in his career after leaving the Mariners, kind of reappeared with, I think it was Minnesota, and then with Atlanta. But keep him in mind, even if he's batting low in the order, could be a potential home run. Citi Field, not the most friendly hitter park, but you can get some home runs there. Anything else you want to mention from the Nationals hitters?
No, just think that it's a pretty high upside spot. And, I like Rendon one-off, Steven. I think Victor Robles is a nice tournament one-off, too.
All right. And then, just throwing out one last number. In his last 775 righty-lefty matchups, Mats is allowing 1.8 home runs per 9. So potential upside is there. It is spring. It is cooler. But as Adam and I have talked on a few of our shows, we've what was it? 3 days ago, there were 18 home runs. 20 if you count the 2 by Zach Greinke. So on some of these slates, there's not a lot of home runs yet. They will be coming. Looking here at our new acquisition, I say ours because I do root for the Nationals. We have Patrick Corbin, who has been just a phenomenal pitcher. He's sort of coming into his own against righties. In his last 1,300 face, he is allowing just under 1 home run per 9. That is what we like to see. And then let's see, how good is he at shutting down lefties? Where'd he go? There he is. It's actually a little bit higher, just over 1 home run per 9. But the strikeout rate is good, 32% against lefties. That would be expected. And then against righties, 25%. Again, over a 1,300 sample size. That's pretty solid. Where are you coming in here on Corbin? It is a lofty price point on DK. Let me get some FanDuel scoring up here. So he's 10. 3 on DK. He's 9,800 on DraftKings, or pardon me, FanDuel. That's pretty expensive. Is he the crown jewel for your starting staff ace?
Yeah, I really like him here for a couple of reasons. For one, you mentioned the price tag, and he is expensive, but this isn't a slate with a ton of great spots for offenses, so I don't expect to have to pay a ton for hitting here. So I think I can afford it on Corbin. He has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate from last season at 30.8%. It's not really close to anyone else. And the only pitcher on this slate, or Michael Pineda and Chris Paddock, both did not pitch last season, so they're not included in that. But outside of them, the next highest strikeout percentage last season was actually Steven Matz at 23.2%. So a huge difference there from Corbin. The Mets aren't as bad an offense as they were last year, but there still are strikeouts in this offense. It's a right-handed heavy lineup, and Corbin does a good job of burying that slider against them and striking out righties, like you said. So I have a ton of interest in Corbin.
All right. And then if I was going to look to anybody here from the Mets, Wilson Ramos, reasonably priced, 3,700 there on DK. He is very good in righty-lefty matchups. Robinson Cano, he'll battle him, but not really worried about him. And then, the book's still out on Ahmed Rosario, Pete Alonso, Jonathan Davis looks like he's projected to be in the lineup. Another relative newcomer here to the bigs. I think we're going to be looking a lot towards Corbin. I would guess he will probably be what, 25% on FanDuel and probably 25 or 30% on DK with regards to his popularity.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty reasonable guess.
All right, let's head on to our next game here. We have the Kansas City Royals at the Detroit Tigers. 59 degrees at first pitch. Gentle breeze, about 1 to 2 miles an hour. So about as fast as we walk coming in from the outfield. That's going to be relatively mitigated. But you have Jorge Lopez going against Matt Moore, both mid-tier prices. But we have some offenses that aren't overly scary here, Adam. We know where the production is likely to come from when it's going to be Detroit. It's going to be Castellanos, Cabrera, Goodrum, and Candelario. They're all kind of right there in the middle. And then in the lefty-lefty matchups, becomes a little bit tougher because we have a priced up Whit Merrifield, a $5.1 thousand Adalberto Mondesi. Both those guys are lightning quick. And then you've got Jorge Soler, bat and cleanup, low price, but he does have some power. Talk to me here. Let's start off with the hitters because we're going to need some the pitchers. We're going to need some SP2s. Do you like either of these hurlers?
Not really. Jorge Lopez is decent, but he's not someone that I really feel like I'll need to go to on this slate in too many lineups. I'd rather look to some of the cheap power on Detroit. Castellanos at 4,200 is appealing, as is Miggy Cabrera at $4,000. And then you have Kristen Stewart at 4K, Goodrum at 3,900. These guys all have enough pop for that price tag against Lopez and a pretty weak Kansas City bullpen. So I would lean towards going to those guys over going to Lopez.
All right, just looking quickly down the numbers here, you are definitely correct. Stewart, Castellanos, Goodrum, they're all hovering right around a 200 isolated power dating back to the beginning of last season. Slightly smaller sample size there for Christian Stewart, but he should be someone that we consider because he doesn't have the name recognition, and the people are going to look at the price and say, why am I playing this guy? Going against the lefties, Soler, magnificent in his last 110 plate appearances against lefties. He has a 277 isolated power. That is beyond elite. Adalberto Mondesi checking in with 220 over his last 110. And then Whit Merrifield kind of turning into an all-around player. I think. How old is Whit Merrifield? I know he's close to 30.
Yeah, he's like 28, 29.
So he was kind of an older guy that burst onto the scene here, but you cannot discount his all-around game. Those would be the main three I think we would look for. Anything else in our second contest here?
Merrifield is 30.
Oh, there you go. Hey, you guys are about the same age.
Yeah, he's older.
Are we? We're almost counting that in days, though, aren't we?
He is almost exactly a year older than me.
All right, there we go.
He was born January 24th, 89. I was born January 5th, 90.
There you go. January 24th, 1989. I believe I was doing statistics for my high school basketball team because I'm not tall and they were rather good. And that was when Metallica 1 came out, the video from And Justice for All, the first video by Metallica. There you go, your blast from the past. Moving on to our next game here, Cincinnati Red, Pittsburgh Pirates. Feels like these guys have played literally every day this season. They almost have. But you've got Tanner Roark, 6,700. That's an intriguing price point going into PNC Park, which is pretty decent at suppressing right-handed power somewhat. Still a little favorable to lefties if we're looking at that split. On the other side, you have Trevor Williams, who is an adequate pitcher, a frustrating pitcher to go against. Let's start off with the pitchers here. These guys don't necessarily get blown up at them, but they're not going to be gathering up heaps of strikeouts for us either. Would these guys be under consideration for your SP2?
So Williams, his plate discipline numbers in his first start of the season, which actually was against Cincinnati, were really, really good. He had a 12.5% swinging strike percentage. His chase percentage was 44.7%. But looking at the pitches he threw, and again, it was just kind of a quick cursory look right now, but I was hoping to see some kind of like increased usage in some sort of breaking ball, but he threw his fastball like 72% of the time. So I'm not sure exactly what was going on there, but without seeing anything more interesting than that, I'm going to just continue treating him like the same pitcher he has been, which is someone who does a good job of limiting hard contact. He does a good job of limiting damage, but he doesn't normally rack up a lot of strikeouts. At an $8,000 price tag on DraftKings, I really don't see the need to go there. And then on the other side, with Tanner Roark at $6,700, not a bad price. not a super appealing pitcher, not a team in Pittsburgh that I really like taking pitchers against, though Sonny Gray is destroying them right now, so I guess anyone can. Tyler Mahle had a good start against them 2 nights ago. It's just that normally they don't strike out all that much. I don't hate the price tag on Roark, but I don't think I'll get to a lot of him.
Okay. Roark over the last 2 seasons, almost identical for a righty perspective as is Trevor Williams. They're both strike out about 21%. Roark gets the nod. He's giving up about 6% walk rate. Williams is at 8.5. Let's see. Roark gives up a touch more power. Once you get over to the lefties, that's where Roark increases his strikeouts, also allowing 1.4 home runs per 9 against lefties. And then you've got Trevor Williams does very well against lefties, allowing just 0.7 home runs per 9 over his last 670 batters faced. Alas, that comes with a sub 15% K rate. So he's not getting hurt, Adam, but he's not really helping you. Let's look to the Reds hitters here. You've got Jesse Winkler at some point is going to realize his power. I keep saying that. I keep thinking about it, but that's not quite yet come to fruition.
Power?
I still think he does when I look at some of the stuff. So I'm holding out hope for that, and I hold out hope because he's leading off, so I want that extra at-bat to give him that chance. If he gets 5 at-bats, that's 20% more than the guys at the bottom of the lineup to have another chance for an extra base hit. But you've got him, you've got Joey Votto, Yasiel Puig, who is up there in price, but this is a nice ballpark for him, and as long as he is engaged and the Reds are not losing, he's someone I think we can consider. And then you've got Eugenio Suarez, Matt Kemp. So a lot of veteran hitters here. No true star outside of Joey Votto. And I don't know that he's really much of a star anymore, considering he is first base. If he played a different position, if he was able to play third, we might consider him still. But solid, though not spectacular lineup. Do you like those guys? Would you consider going to Adam Frazier? Still waiting for him to get some steals. You've got Starling Marte, who is healthy again. Francisco Cervelli should be batting third. Josh Bell, your mileage may vary with him. Never quite gets the power when I'm expecting him to. And then you've got Young Ho Gung, who is there batting fifth after sitting out last season, serving some, I don't know if it was time but some sort of penalty for, I believe, multiple DUIs back in his home country of Korea. Hopefully he has sorted that out. What do you like here from the hitters?
Not a whole lot that I think is appealing. Not surprisingly, both of these teams have implied run totals under 4. It's why I think Roark's an okay SP2, even though he's not exciting, just because I don't expect there to be a ton of runs scored here. Frazier leading off at second base, I think is okay. Cervelli, because the catcher position is never very strong, he should be hitting third. Though actually he caught on Friday night, so it wouldn't be surprising at all if he's not in the lineup. But if he is, then he should be hitting around third. I don't mind taking a chance on Suarez or Puig just because they have so much upside, but they aren't guys that I think will end up being priorities for me.
All right, heading on to our next one here. We've got Minnesota at Philadelphia. You've got Michael Pineda going against Jake Arrieta. Pineda made it, just 40 pitches in his last outing there against Cleveland. He made it 4 innings. There were some weather issues. I want to see, why did he leave early?
It was like 30 degrees. They had him go 4 innings, and then they just brought in Martin Perez.
All right, that makes sense. He is now 30, so we've been waiting for him to realize his potential talent. Adam, perhaps there's not much left to realize, but we do like some strikeouts. A dangerous lineup there in Philadelphia, but I suspect he will be at some lower ownership. And then you've got Jake Arrieta. Here, let's see. He, in his first matchup, went against Atlanta, was very, very solid. 104 pitches, 6 innings, allowed just 1 run, 6 walks, which he has wont to do. 3 hits, so 9 total base runners. The 6 walks, that's pretty concerning, but nice to see him go 104 pitches. What do you have from these pitchers for us?
Yeah, I don't have any interest in paying up for Arrieta. It's just more of a price. It's a more expensive price tag than I really want. I would have some interest in looking to some Minnesota bats like Kepler, Polanco, Rosario, just because it is a boost in home run opportunities hitting in Philadelphia, and because Arrieta doesn't miss a ton of bats. On the other side, I want to pay attention to Michael Pineda's projected ownership because I expect it'll be pretty low since he was popular in his first start and he burned like everyone because he was pulled after 40 pitches. But in his final spring training start, he threw between 70 and 80 pitches. So I think that the first start probably just had more to do with it being really cold in Minnesota and them not wanting to push the issue with him. It wouldn't be surprising to me at all if we saw him get back to 70, 75 pitches here, which isn't great, obviously, but when you talk about the upside that he brings compared to other people in his price range, like a Tanner Roark or a Matt Moore, if he's low owned, I don't mind taking that risk.
All right, looking at the hitters, Byron Buxton not playing Friday. We last saw him on Wednesday. He's been dealing with a sore back, as Adam mentioned. Could be precautionary because they're going to need him to steal bases if the Twins are going to go anywhere this year. He has one steal on the year. Got that in his in the last game. I believe that was a pinch running appearance. He did score a run. He had 0 at bats, Adam. So I'm guessing that was a pinch running shot. If he's in the lineup, somebody to consider. It was cold and wet in Philadelphia on Friday. It looks like it's going to be 65 at first pitch with no precipitation. So much better baseball weather here. As we look first off here to the Twins, Max Kepler, somewhat intriguing leading off. Eddie Rosario, always a gamer. And then not really anybody else exciting. Jason Castro, you're playing him for a home run, but he does have some pop in lefty righty matchups. And then he's also a member of my friends, I'm assuming this is a baseball thing. Adam, you played baseball for a long time. They called it the 4100 or the 4200 club. I had a couple friends who were catchers, and they never got hits, but they'd get on base because it would be a fielder's choice or whatever it was. But that 4 at bats, one run, and then nothing else. That's what they called the 4100 club. Did you ever have any things like that when you were playing ball?
I hadn't heard that one though.
Okay. What do you like here from the Twinks? Anybody?
Yeah, I like the top, 3 to 4 in the lineup. Kepler, Polanco, Rosario, all left-handed pop against Arrieta. CJ Cron has enough power that he's reasonable. On the other side, I mentioned obviously that I'm interested in Pineda as an SP2 if he's low owned, but I also am interested in stacking Philadelphia because they're one of the most talented overall offenses on the slate, and because we don't know exactly what Pineda's pitch count is actually going to look like. I expect it to be much higher than last time, but we don't know. If they do something again, like bring Martin Perez in the 5th inning, then I would love to have as much Philadelphia as possible. So I do think that they're a high upside stack.
All right, I need to call up. They changed the link on my favorite bullpen usage page, but I found a new one. So let me see here, because you were the one that really got me into looking at this. I want to see. Of course, we don't know what's going on yet. Everybody got the day off Thursday from Minnesota, so that's key. You have to see what happened on Friday. So nobody should be taxed at this point, but that is something to start considering here earlier in the season when a lot of the starters are not yet fully stretched out. We've seen a few teams have their bullpens get roughed up, and then who was it? I think it was Godley in his game for Arizona had to go sort of take one for the team against the homer happy Dodgers, and he gave up a leadoff home run, did okay for 3 innings, and then just got his ass kicked, but they left him out there until midway through the 6th because they just didn't have any arms left. So that's something you do want to consider here from time to time when you're looking at your batters, because once the starters run out of the game, what kind of a bullpen is coming in? So if you're going against Texas or Baltimore, a little more favorable than if you're going against like last year's Brewers or traditionally Oakland or San Diego generally cobbles together a decent bullpen, etc. So you want to look at the names, or pardon me, the usage, because you're not going to recognize the names from a lot of these mid-tier teams. So just one little tip to think about as we still have 180 more days of baseball going on here. Anything else from the Twins and Philadelphia Phillies?
No.
The Seattle Mariners, that was an offense. I never saw who won. Oh, I think the Mariners lost. There was 17 runs in that game today. It was a 2:00 start. They had done the early postponement for Thursday's game. Let's see. Yep, 8-10. The Mariners lost, Adam. That's a pretty hefty scoring run there, and people, they used each side used 4 of their bullpen that saw at least between 13 and 25 pitches. So something to start keeping an eye on. As we mentioned, of course, those teams did not play on Thursday, but that's something you want to think about as we head into Sunday, depending on what happens Friday and Saturday. Looking at these two squads here, you have Mike Leake, you have Lucas Giolito. So you have upside in Giolito when he can realize it. You have, well, ideally not a lot of downside with Mike Leake. There are some available strikeouts here. Leake in his last, and I went and looked this up, but I'm ballparking the numbers, in his last like 120 starts, I think he had 20 games with at least 7 strikeouts. So not a lot, because there were a lot of 3, 4, and 5 strikeout games in there, but he has been reasonable. The weather's going to work a little bit in his favor. This one should be about 57 degrees at first pitch. You have a slight breeze of 6 miles an hour coming in there from right field. Would you consider Leake as a ideally low risk SP2, or would you go for Giolito with potential strikeout upside against the magical Mariners that just are putting runs up?
I'm more interested in Giolito. I understand that he comes with a lot of risk, but he kind of at times last year started to put things together, and then he was really, really good in his first start this year against Kansas City. One thing that was pointed out on Twitter by the Pitching Ninja Twitter account is that Giolito's throwing motion is different this year, shorter and more compact. So obviously only time will tell, but I'm curious to see if maybe we see better control from him and maybe be a little bit more consistent. Normally less moving parts in a delivery leads to more consistency. So hopefully we see that be the case. But while his price tag's still really cheap, it's a really difficult spot, or a dangerous spot at least, against Seattle. But I do think there's a lot of upside for him. I assume he'll come in at low ownership, with Seattle having one of the highest implied run totals on the slate. So in tournaments as an SP2, I have interest in Giolito.
All right, now here's something for everybody to consider. Currently through 8 games, so this is not taking into account today for oh no, it is taking, because the Dodgers they're already done, so this should be updated. So the Dodgers through 8 games have 65 runs scored. The Mariners through 7 games, remember they had 2 games in the Japan series, have 64 runs scored. So doing some quick math, the Mariners are averaging almost 7 runs per game, Adam. The next closest teams are 45 with Texas, 41 with Atlanta, and 41 with the Diamondbacks. Now they've all played one more or 2 less games, depending on which of those teams. But they're 20 runs behind the Mariners and the Dodgers. That's just wild. It's always fun when you get people, on pace for 162 home runs. They're on pace for 200 steals. But holy cow, the Mariners' offense has just been not what we had expected thus far in the season. They should do a little bit better playing on the road away from T-Mobile Park. Just keep that in mind. They may not, at least this point, with everybody hitting well, may not quite be the patsy that we are used to, or what I expect we see later in the season. Talk to me here about the Chi Sox power hitters.
I think it's a pretty interesting spot for them. Leake has made a living, an entire career basically, out of pitching the contact and doing a good job of limiting damage against them for the most part. But whenever you get a team full of high strikeout, high power guys like the White Sox, I'm always intrigued by them against guys that pitch to contact, even when, like Leake, they generally do a pretty good job of limiting hard contact. Guys like Yoan Moncada and Yonder Alonso and Jimenez and Polka, these guys all have power. And if you're going to let them hit the ball, they can hit it a really long way. I think that Chicago is one of the highest upside stacks that we have.
All right, and let's finish this off with our 6th and final early game. Again, remember, we're going to go game by game again, but in even more thorough detail for all of the slate. That'll be starting probably about 11:15 on the Osmo YouTube channel. Check that out. That will be Adam and myself. We'll probably spend a good hour and a half going through everything. We will also have the live before lock covering the 6-game main slate, which Adam and I will cover the 3-game midday slate and the 6-game late slate as well on Saturday morning. But here we have Christopher Paddock, who is 9,600 on DraftKings. You've got Michael Wacha checking in at the mid-8s. I want to see what their FanDuel prices are. Goodness, they're both in the mid-8,000s. Is that a little too much to pay for Paddock, or wait for it, is that going to scare people away even against a, you know, we think of the Cardinals as a tougher lineup, but they're still skewing mostly righty, which should play into Paddock's favor, and they're not as scary as one would think. Dexter Fowler's another year older. Yadier Molina must have found the fountain of youth. We've got Colton Wong, who's batting seventh. Harrison Bader, who has some pop and some major holes in his swing. And then you got the pitcher going here. Talk to me about Paddock as a potential swerve play out of our 12 starting pitchers.
And so I think that what you mentioned is exactly what I was going to say as far as paying attention to how the field's treating him, because this is a guy who, at least within like the fantasy sports community, season long guys and DFS players, got a lot of hype during the offseason. And so there's a chance that you see people just kind of flock to him because they were really excited for him. And then he did well in his first start. And now they can roster him again. Or you're going to see people decide that price tag's too high and they don't want any part of it, especially against a Cardinals lineup that does have some really good hitters in it. So I would like to do the opposite of whatever everyone else is expected to do. I do respect the Cardinals lineup. I do think Paddock is good and has a lot of upside. If I can get him at low ownership, then I think I like him in tournaments. But if he were to be like projected for similar ownership to Patrick Corbin for not that much less, I would rather just go to Corbin in what is, I think, a better spot. And I'm sure Corbin is currently a better pitcher than Paddock. So a lot will be dictated for me by projected ownership on the field. One thing to point out with Paddock, though, and I'm quickly looking at his minor league numbers from last season. We don't have any sort of really big sample size, but if we look at his pitch grades on FanGraphs, he's a 3-pitch pitcher: fastball, curveball, changeup. His curveball grades out as like average. His fastball grades out above average, and his changeup grades out like phenomenal. That's the kind of repertoire that generally leads to someone being reverse splits, having their best pitch as a changeup and not having any sort of above average breaking pitch to use to same-handed hitters. He never pitched above Double-A, so I don't know. Like we can't really take anything away from it. He threw like 37 innings at Double-A last season, struck out 24 righties in 21 innings. So there's no real semblance of reverse splits from his minor league numbers. But that wouldn't be surprising if that's how he develops. And if that's going to be the case, and we wanted to, kind of try and take a chance on that happening early before other people see it, the Cardinals are a very right-handed heavy team, like you said, and they could do a lot of damage against a guy that does not have an above-average breaking ball.
All right, let's look at some of their power numbers here. You've got Goldie, of course, who's absolutely elite against lefties and righties. Since the beginning of 2017, he has 1,000 plate appearances again in righty-righty matchups, 395 WOBA, 255 ISO, 941 OPS. That's all definitely going to be at the top of the leaderboards there. Carpenter, of course, this is a lefty-righty matchup, but he's rivaling the same numbers there. From Goldschmidt, he's coming off a career-high mid-30s home run. And then depending on health, you've got Marcell Ozuna in the mix as well. You've got Paul DeJong here, who also has some power. So, Adam, if you're on to something here, that could be a nice spot to pick a 50 or 100-man league and get in 4 key St. Louis hitters and have a little fun in a $2, $3, $4, $5 league. And if you're right, you'll probably be up near the top. And those leagues, man, that's where you get your 3, 4, 5x return. Yeah, you're not going to make $1,000, but you're not going to beat out 99% of the people and get 1.6% of your buy-in back.
Yeah.
Anything else here you want to point out, any of the pod squad for us?
No, I think Waka is a good enough pitcher. I think he's a reasonable SP2 option if you can afford him.
A little heavier on the walks that we like, doesn't give up a ton of power.
Yeah.
Kind of just absorbs innings at this point.
Yeah, I hate rostering him in DFS, but there's not really pitching on this slate outside of, it's a really weird slate. Like, I don't like the pitching. I don't really like the hitting.
These are the fun ones when you're doing mass multi-entry, if you're properly constructing your portfolio and getting the right leverages, though.
Yeah, no, completely agree.
All right, that is going to do it for us. You got 40 minutes from us. Again, you're going to get double that at least on the Saturday show. If you've not yet signed up for Osmo Premium content, what the heck are you waiting for? Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, at checkout, and you will get 50% off any 1 month package. That does include any of the Fantasy Cruncher add-ons, so go ahead and give that a try. It's the best deal out there to give a sample of what Fantasy Cruncher can offer, and they are partnering with us because they know we support it, and we give a lot of good instruction and help out our subscribers on how to utilize it. So they want to give us the chance to give you guys a taste of the good stuff. With that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. You can find me at EMACDFS, and of course it is Osmo_COM on the Twitter machine. Good luck, gamers.